Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to the Perspective 9. So in the last video, we showed you how to set up a basic Python MCP server and how to run it locally. So today we are going to be looking at setting up a C# MCP server because a lot of people that I know from work do use C# as their main stack. Then we're going to be looking at a tool called the MCP inspector. After that, we're going to look at serving that MCP server over SSE so we can expose it to public. And then we're going to look at the Cloud's desktop application and how to connect the MCP servers to it. And then we'll look at some different other tools that are available in the MCP. So first thing, we're going to open up our command line and just create a basic .NET application. If you don't have it, you can install it. I'm using .NET version 9. Wait, build. It did. And as you can see here, there's nothing special. We have the CS project and our program, which is a basic Hello World application. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the Microsoft extension hosting. And the next would be to add the model context protocol. But because the application is quite new, if you go on the GitHub itself, it tells you to run it as a pre-release version, and sometimes that could even cause some issues. So I would highly suggest for you to go and look up in the Nugget packages, find the exact latest model to run, and then come back to your command prompt and add that as well. So let's just double check. We have our packages included in there. Now going in here, we are setting up an application builder. So we are just doing host create application builder, very basic. The two things that are going to be new for you guys is going to be the first, the add MCP server. And then the other option that is going to be with the standard input output transport. And lastly, with assembly. So we're going to also set that as an async application. And all it's doing is it's setting up a greeting, and all you're getting as answer is hello, welcome to this name of the city that is being passed as the variable by the model. So we're gonna save this .NET build. And now to run it, we can do .NET run, but we are going to look at the inspector first. So if you go and look at the model context protocols inspector, where is it? There we go. You need to install Node first. It's a Node.js application, and all it's doing is giving you a web server where you can do some of the testing. And here it shows you how to get it running. So all we do is npx model context inspector and .NET run. So we see that it's running on that port. Here, as you guys can see, there's the two different transport types. So far, we've been only stuck with the standard input output. We have our command and the argument, which is run. And if you need to add more variables here, you have both the environment variables and the configurations that if you need to play with those, you're going to do connect. Here you see that everything else is grayed out, but we'll look at the tool. Here you can list your tool. And let's say me, run. And this is what we get back from our application. So now let's disconnect this. And instead of running this, I'm going to look at what we did before. So we're going to look at our USD to GBP application that we built in Python. I'm just going to pull up the details through here for the path and argument. Okay. And we are going to do connect. Gonna clear the list the tools again. You see our tools, and we're gonna pass the amount 100, and it does our calculation. So no matter the kind of application that you're using, no matter if you're using C#, the Python, or anything else, you're pretty much able to pass your command and argument directly in here to be able to run your application. Now we are going to get into some of the other tools that MCP offers in order to make a useful application. So this example that we are going to be doing is, let's say that you're running a car dealership, right? And you want to have a database of list of car parts or other dealers that you're doing business with. You want to expose that database instead of a API. You want to put it as an MCP server where people can talk to it. So what's the easiest way to get that set up on people's computer? I would say it would be with the Cloud Desktops application, because that's not a coding environment, that's an actual chatting environment for people. So going back here, I've written a very basic tool like before. So here, pretty much the same thing as what we had in our USD to GBP, which we are setting up the MCP server. But then in our tool, all we are doing is we are connecting to a SQL, local SQL database, and we are passing the SQL variable, and we're getting the answers back. And we are just concatenating it properly so it's easier to read. And here is the description for the chat itself. The other thing that we're going to be looking at right after this is going to be resources. So going to the Multi-Level Context Protocol website, you can see that in terms of the concepts, we had the tools which we initially looked at. So if we go to the code part of it, it pretty much does some computation and it gives us the answer. You have sampling, routes, transports. So we're going to take this one step at a time. And I think the easier way to understand is actually going with the demo codes. And since the Python SDK is the most complete at the moment, we'll go there. So here, when we are looking at the resources, as it explains, it just gives you a context. So if you have a config application for your data, or if you're getting users' data like first name, last name, things like that, you can use that as a resource, which is no computation is being done. It's just a context data that is being provided to our tool. The tool section, we looked at it. It's the computation that's being done. The next section is prompts. So if you have a big prompt, let's say you're coding in Angular, or if you're using functional programming, you can say, please review my code in functional programming language and make sure it applies to the best standards of Angular. And anytime that you say, please review my code, it will pass this as the prompt instead. So it's kind of a templating tool more than anything. And then here's the image section. So if your model can generate images, you can use that as well. We're not going to get into that for the moment. And the last thing I want to get into is the routes. So if you're using a specific folder to run your application, or if you're using a specific base URL, it's just the root of your application. You can pass that in there as well. So now here, going back to our application, here we are adding the resource, which is a schema. and we are saying it's a main schema, and it says provide the database schema as a resource. And here we are having just the tables provided. Now, if you go to our car database, it's a basic database I downloaded online. You have brands, dealers, customers, things like that. So I just went to the dealer tab to get some sample data. We are going to use that to do our example. Next, we want to go to Cloud Desktop, which is the Anthropic's cloud provider. And the reason that we want to use this instead of using the web browser is the MCPs. So let me just open up Cloud Desktop. Here, all you have to do is go to File Settings, and then in the Developer tab, you have to turn that on. And then you can click on Edit Config. It will give you that file, and here you can add your MCP server settings. So here you have your MCP server, and you can add as many as you want. Again, similar thing as every single application. You get your command and you get your argument. So after adding that, you come back here. Here we see that now we have something new that we didn't have before. It shows the tool. It says query data, execute SQL string query safely. And then here in terms of our integrations, we have our schema. So we are passing our schema in there as a resource, and then we can ask it based on my database, what is the address of So here, again, similar to continue, Dave is going to ask you permission to run it. It's just a safety feature. You can either allow it always for it to always be able to connect to your server, or you can allow it once. So here in the backend, it shows you the kind of script that it wants to run. And it shows you the answer that it gets as well. So here, apparently it made a syntax error. It fixed it by itself. And we got our answer, which is the 1, 2, 3 ABC lane, which if you look at our data, 1, 2, 3 ABC lane. Now, the last thing that we want to look at is, okay, this is great if you're running this on the same computer that, or same local network that our MCP servers and our actual clients are running on. But what if you want to expose this as a server for other, let's say, dealerships to be able to use it as well inside of their applications? So as a basic setup, we can just set an instruction for every dealer to pretty much install Claude Dev and set up the MCP server settings in the way that we just went through it. But now we are going to go to our code for SSE. So here, all we are doing is we are using Starlet. We have our tool. And again, to keep it simple, I'm using USD to GBP conversion tool. And we are seeing where the application is being mounted. So here, if you have your domain of, let's say, samscars.com, you can do /LLM, or you can say /AI. But for now, we're going to keep it at that. And going in here, if you run this, it shows that we are using the port 3001 on localhost to run this. So you can set this up to run in the background, either as a Docker application or as a detached application in your Python server. And just to test and make sure that it works is we are going to back to our MCP inspector. Now, instead of this standard input output, we're going to go to SSE, which is just a streaming service. Here, we are passing our local host, but at the end, we have to just pass the SSE to connect to it. So we're going to do the connection. We're going to go to tools, list tools, and here you can make sure that our tool works. And now this is running as a server, and this is all of the requests that we've done. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments.